I'm a Yigar Gunditjmara, Wakka Wakka, Bindal, Wurrung woman. I'm also Torres Islander. That defines me every day and who I am and my position in the world and the way I walk through life. It was on a Friday night. It was my workmate's engagement party and his 30th birthday party, that's right. We all kind of went out together at the local pub that we would usually go to. After that, we kicked on back at my place because it wasn't far from the pub. One of the girls that used to live in the house, she brought 2 dudes back, but one of the dudes went home and one of them stayed. He was like really friendly. He was African American and he's over here as a student or something. Then at one stage, the girl who used to be my housemate, I moved into her old room, and so she showed one of my colleagues where her old room was. And so then my bedroom was open and accessible. The dude, he came in, he was like having a chat to us. He ended up at one stage passing out in my bed. And I was like, oh, I feel so bad for him. It's okay, I'll just like let him sleep there and I can just like go sleep somewhere else. So we just fell asleep in the lounge room. And then I woke up in my bedroom being sexually assaulted by him. And I don't remember how I got in my room. It took me a while to kind of realise what was happening. I didn't know. I was like really confused because I was really drunk, and it just took me like what felt like forever to kind of realise what was happening. And when I kind of came to my senses, I pushed him off me, and I remember like him like saying to me, "Oh, are you serious?" Once I kicked him out, then I just went back to sleep. I just went back to bed. And then I stayed in bed like all Saturday. I was hungover and I was like not sure what happened to me. I was so confused. And I couldn't stop crying for like 2 days. So I called up CASA, the Centre Against Sexual Assault. After I spoke on the phone to the person that organised me to go up to the hospital and to get a physical examination and just go to the hospital to get checked or whatever. The whole thing about girls being drunk, or I got asked when I told one of my family members, I told them what happened, and the first question was, were you drunk? Victim blaming and having my story compared to other survivors' stories and which one's worse than the other made me feel so shit. Especially because it was like from one of my siblings, one of my parents. So I think that was the hardest because, you know, like I don't think they knew how much it affected you. Sexual assault is hard enough to recover from, but then to have people blame you for it and people like in your family and people in positions of power do that to you. It's just so hard. Just believing them. Just believing when they say that, because it takes so much courage just to tell anybody and just like love and support them no matter what, and don't doubt them and try to give them as much control as they want over their own decisions. I think that's how people can better love and support survivors and just learn more about it. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to call places like CASA to see how you can deal with this situation and ask for advice, because the last thing you want to do is shut these people out. It was around Easter, it was Good Friday, the Thursday before. I went out to the pub where we were all out that night. I hadn't been back there since. And as soon as I walked in the door, he was sitting at the table. I had a panic attack, and then I had to try and call the police and tell them that I'd found him. He denied the whole thing. He continued to blame me for what happened. I was like so scared of the person because he knew where I lived, and I didn't know what was going to happen because he's been questioned by police, and he might have who knows, I don't know what he could have done. It wasn't till Monday I contacted my lawyer and I said, I need to get a restraining order against this person. My lawyer contacted me back and said that he'd left the country, so he'd been interviewed by the police and left back to the US that afternoon. And then that was the end of their investigation, pretty much. I was left with that it was my fault from the police officer, and that the dude said it was consensual. He just lied to them, as perpetrators do, and the police decided to believe him over me. Going back home to Portland and going to the beach and watching the sunrise and sunset, I think that's what's been really healing, is going back home. I don't think there'd be a word that could describe how amazing it is. It's just this feeling of strength, even an out-of-body experience, because it's so quiet and all you can hear is the waves crashing and the cold water, and it just feels so beautiful. I just feel that when I'm there, it feels like I'm just drawing all the strength of my ancestors to help me. So I think that was the most healing thing. The way that colonization is linked to sexual assault is that when the English came here, it wasn't consensual. The way that they used sexual violence to control Aboriginal people in this country is why it's so closely linked to sexual assault now, and the culture that continues obviously to happen now. And it's about dehumanisation of people, and it's dehumanisation of Aboriginal people and just women in general. I know that one of my friends from Canada, she has a perfect thing. It's Tarneen Onus is rape culture, and I just don't think you can word it better than that. I just don't want it to be a thing that women are ashamed of. It's not something we should be ashamed of because it's something that's happened to us. We're not the criminals. We're not the perpetrator here. A couple months later, I booked a trip by myself to the US and Europe, and my mum was like, "Oh, Tarneen, you can't go overseas by yourself. You can't do that. It's not safe." And I was like, if I'm not safe in my own fucking house, I'm not safe anywhere. I just got told so many times to be safe, while I was away, or just in general, my family will say, "Oh, be safe." I even got told by Optus to be safe, when I was travelling. It was really weird. When you go data roaming, I was just like, fuck off, Optus. Seriously. So I think I've kind of learnt that for me as an Aboriginal woman, there's no safe space for me, and I'm not going to let things bound me to and restrict me from doing the things that I want to do, the things that I love.